too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out. 'Cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. 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 You cashed in on my promises. You know I'm too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out. 'Cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. A little stronger now. Casting on my promises. You know I'm too generous. Now I've learned to never help you out. 'Cause I'm done cleaning up your mess. Found myself in my regrets. I've become a little stronger now. A little stronger now.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me. Hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights.
I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
And there we go. Now people can actually hear the other side of the conversation.
Yep.
Those who are listening, it's important for you to understand that I was convinced that I was muted, and Stephen was convinced that everyone could hear me. So hi everyone, hope you're having a nice evening, afternoon. I don't know if it would be morning for anyone at this point. Maybe, I don't think Paul Krobs is driving.
Yeah, and Kenji is
West
not
Coasters.
here. Nope.
Yeah, he's not, but I didn't think he was West Coast. Or any of our potential West Coasters. Good morning.
Yeah.
And I've had a much less exciting morning. A lot less to set up, just prepping for a solo stream until a stroke of, we'll call it luck, means that that we've got the two of us, so nobody can question Steven's his
Dedication, could one say?
Wow,
Yeah.
one could definitely say dedication if they remember the word. Steven's dedication to the stream. But yeah, here we are with a wet Zolder, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Spa during round one. Saving money on logistics costs, helping the environment, so we can all be happy about that. And yeah, some rough conditions out there today. Only 13 drivers at the moment, smaller grid, and that's probably at least in part due to the conditions here. As Zolder on its own is already a tricky track, and now you're adding in some tough conditions. So it'll be this will be a hard race for our drivers today, wouldn't you say, Stephen?
It will be. It'll also be a little hard to commentate. I do have team viewers giving me some stuttering issues now, so I'm getting about like a frame a second, I think, at the moment. But as long as the stream is fine, that is all good. We see Richard Walters with a fastest lap of a 1:33.4. For reference, not last season, but the last time Bez had a race here at Zolder, the fastest lap times were in the 28s. So we're about 5.5 seconds off of our pace right now. So that is, definitely some wet conditions. Tricky around here, especially with how in the dry most drivers rely a lot on the curbs in order to maximize track width, get the ideal line through corners. We'll see Richard coming up here through this chicane. I mean, it's basically pure curb that you're riding over, so you really need a lot of commitment, especially in these conditions, to trust that your car is going to have the grip in all four tires to make it through, that you aren't going to lose traction in the front or spin the rears and lose the rear end of the car and pirouette a little bit. So yeah, we see Richard, I mean, basically through all these corners, taking about as much curve as he would in the dry. So that Lamborghini is definitely proving a very formidable weapon for him at the moment. We'll have to see how well that pace stacks up once some other drivers get out of the pits. We see, most cars still in the pits right now, but I also think they are in their driver's briefing. I'm sure Yvonne Watson going over some very crucial wet race information, telling drivers to essentially not be idiots for this the start of this race.
Which is a tough thing to do in the wet sometimes. I mean, it's a tough thing to do in the dry, but then you add in the mixed conditions, and things can go wrong very easily. So, yeah, we've got Richard Walters, bit of a surprise pick for the fastest driver at the moment, with Vigard almost a second behind. So Richard, clearly, he's pushing right now. Brenham 1.175 off in third place. We all know that's a goddamn lie. We know what Vigard is going to do, as he's up into second place now. Just a big jump, good half-second time save there. And Vigard now in third. Carl Nordell, the well-known pro driver in P4. So lots of drivers in that 34-second range, and then Richard and now Oystein Brenham showing some real pace, some flashes. Obviously, it's very difficult to gauge pure pace in ever-changing conditions. Right now, we're looking at a greasy track. Let me actually take a look, see if I can figure out which drivers are on wets and which are on dries, if we have any on wets whatsoever. And I see we've got Yvonne is on wet tires. Most drivers, all drivers on track at the moment are on dries, except for Pashov, who's getting out of the pits in the wets. So just trying things out. We've got 10 minutes left in practice. Now is the time to experiment. So if wet tires do happen to be faster, then now is the time to figure that out. It does look like conditions are going to be quite variable in 10 minutes, or in the next 10 minutes, we're going to see a reduction in the rain. And of course, by the time practice ends in 30 minutes, we'll have it going back up to a little bit stronger rain. So we'll have to see what happens in practice, of course, and even more so important in the race.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we had a mixed condition race like this. Did we have any last season off the top of your head?
I feel like Spa qualifying was wet, but the race ended up being dry.
Donington also was
Donington.
Yeah.
Donington was wet. Yes, so we did have a couple, just lightly sort of sprinkled throughout the season, and now we're starting off this season with a bit of a bang, and so far I haven't seen too many drivers with any big shunts in practice. No, nothing's really been popping up on our screens here. Our secretive boards. As I say that, we've got a Charlie going slow. We've got Castillo, as you can see, he has crashed so far. He's not even on track. So the camera's there. He comes, trying to find him, and ends up finding him at the end. So a couple drivers may be having some incidents, but for the most part, at least in practice, seems like drivers are able to keep themselves on track. Now, what happens in qualifying in the race when they start to push is a very different story, but at least for now, they've been clean as a whistle. As we see Rosen Pashov going back into the pits. Last lap of 34. Oh, his last lap of 7:23. So I think maybe he's realized wet tires are not the way to go right now. I think we're going to be seeing, if the conditions hold, most of our drivers on the dry tires.
No, that makes sense, and that's very interesting for our drivers if this is similar conditions to what we're going to see in the race, because the main issue there is when you have dry tires on a wet track is that water on the track really cools down those tires. So in order to have adequate pressure in the tires, you really need to increase those by quite a lot in the car setup page. So our drivers, if they want to have reasonable pressures, are probably running very, very high pressures out of the garage. What that could lead to is that if we see a race that, starts wet and transitions to dry, those dry tires, once the track dries up, they are going to spike up in temperature, which will cause a huge spike in pressure. That causes a very, very unstable car that's basically riding on a tire that has a much smaller contact patch with the track. So that could be a very interesting situation that our drivers are going to have to be in, is managing those pressures on a potentially drying track in our hour and 15 minute long race. Just saying a number without a unit does not make much sense there. But yeah, so that always brings in an element of trickiness when it is kind of this in between. Like, do you go wet tires, which are going to be able to, kind of like maintain their heat and their pressure a little bit better, but of course would get, very hot very quickly on a drying track? Or do you risk it on dries, start out with very high pressures, but have exploding pressures and temperature as well when that track starts to dry out? A dilemma that the drivers have to face, but as Reagan mentioned, most seeming to go on the dry tire at the end of practice here.
Yes, it does look like it. Of course, if you're on the wet tires, you end up hitting the opposite issue. The wet tires have an operating window for pressure, optimal pressure, much higher than the dry tires, around 30 psi. So, in order to get these or I should say, it's a lot higher, but also you're getting these tires that really want to be in the wet. They're designed because of the treads to be in the wet, driving over water. So at the same time, if you put on that dry tire, or if you put on a wet tire and you start to get a dry no track, the tread on these tires as it heats up is going to be you're going to rip through your tires. We've had some endurance races where I've had plenty of experience trying to drive wet tires on a dry track, trying to push them into certain windows, and it is not fun. It is not a fun thing to do. So really on either side, there's not really a perfect solution in conditions like this. It's up to the drivers to figure out which tires are going to work best in the conditions. Of course, you do have some relatively accurate estimates between what the tire is going to be doing, what the weather is going to be doing, whether the track is going to be drying out or getting a little more wet, staying steady. But of course, you've only got 10 and 30 minute windows that you get that estimate from. So lots of what we'll call educated guessing. Lots of experience, just knowing sort of what conditions can do and what tires can do in certain conditions is going to allow these drivers to make the best choice.
Absolutely, and with these changeable conditions, of course, I mean, the last race was dry, but we saw quite a number of new cars. So we have the Evo McLaren, we have a new Ferrari, a new Porsche. I know we haven't really gotten to drive many of those cars, but going back to their previous iterations, characteristics, are there any that you say would have any particular strengths or weaknesses in a changeable track?
It's tough to say. We definitely have a relatively condensed grid in terms of manufacturers right now. We've got 2 Lamborghinis, we've got 3 Porsches, 4 BMWs, 3 McLarens, and 1 Ferrari of Prevost. So only 5 manufacturers, if I am counting correctly, throughout the entire grid. The Porsche is the car that I've had the most experience with. I've always enjoyed driving the Porsche in the wet. I've always thought it was a relatively, especially considering the reputation the Porsche has in the dry, I always thought it was a relatively fun car to drive in the wet. And as you mentioned, the Lamborghini to me is a wild card. I don't have a lot of experience with it. I mean, the McLaren, if it's anything like its non-Evo counterpart, is a very neutral car, mid-engine car, but I've always found that to be relatively pleasant in the wet when I've driven it. BMW, I mean, it's got that front engine. Should be relatively planted. I would love to say that I could give you some more detailed rundown than that, but really I'm as curious as anyone else could be to see how these cars all fare in these conditions.
Absolutely, and yeah, we have Brenham, we have Ness and Watson, as well as Gary Bosman, who Kurt Peters gave a shout out, a little go message to Gary from Kurt Peters. So yeah, we have 4 drivers. All I was going to say in the BMW, which is a front engine car. They are the only front engine cars that we have on the grid today. So those should be fairly stable around here, and we see Brenham definitely putting that to use. But about 8/10 off of Vigard, who put a very, very solid lap in the Porsche there. But again, we don't know how much Brenham was holding back or how much fuel he had on the tank there. I'm sure come qualifying in just shy of a minute, we are going to see a whole different beast, as Vigard we might also be seeing a completely different beast goes 6/10 faster roughly than his previous time. And Brenham had improved as well. Everyone has improved.
Ashton with a huge, that was a 1.6 second time save there. A ridiculous time save. And we have Kelvin here also looking like he's going to be putting up potentially a solid time here. 1.8 seconds up on his current best of 1:34.25. And he has a nice jump into sixth place, as a 1:32.41 is his final time. So yeah, lots of drivers are finding these last second improvements. I think the track is starting to dry out just a little bit. And of course, who knows exactly how much this is going to matter in qualifying. We'll have to see what the track conditions are like, and we'll be seeing that in just a second.
Yeah, we saw Pashov pull over there and return to garage. We had Charlie Thornton, he was up by quite a bit. It seems that he has now taken the checkered flag. I don't know if he made a mistake and lost some time, but I thought that lap was going to put him into the 32s, so not sure what happened to Mr. Charlie Thornton there. But of course, practice is now over, but drivers are still showing as green, so they're definitely finding a lot of time. After that driver's briefing ended, we saw many more cars coming out of the pits, but man, yeah, Pashoff and Brenham as well, with a pretty decent improvement, and Vigard not too far behind that. I think we're going to have a pretty solid top 3 or top 4 battle in qualifying and hopefully carrying over into the race as well.
Well, we just saw Brenham put up a 31.090, which is a very fast time, but not the fastest time of the session. And he put that time up in just about the best conditions you could find. So, yeah, we've definitely got at least 3 drivers, that top 3, that are looking mighty racy today. And we'll just have to see as qualifying starts up what our drivers can do. So I'm looking at the conditions. It's cloudy. It looks like a light rain at the moment. Track is greasy, so I'm expecting we will be seeing dry tires here. It does look like in the next 30 minutes, or in 10 minutes, I believe we are seeing an increase in rain. In the next 30 minutes, we'll be seeing a slight decrease in rain. So that might just mean that our AM drivers are going to have the best conditions on the track. As let us jump over, I believe it is Kelvin and Jake are our AM drivers. We've got 3 drivers today, so that's Nicholas Castillo, Bryce Prevost, and Jake Smith. We're all going to be going out on track for their 10 minutes of AM qualifying.
Yeah, so we'll have a couple drivers on the track. Reagan, I was going to ask, do you want to do our Zolder overview, the little 1-minute track overview that we do while drivers are on their outlap?
I would love to. Nothing would make me happier.
And I'll let you handle the pronunciation. I know you did our Zandvoort video last season. You loved those bocht.
Those bochts.
Yep.
Yes, we got lots of bochts for you today.
Alrighty, let's take a look at that.
So, of course, we're driving at Zandvoort today, the other less popular, less famous Belgian track in Assetto.
You mean
Corsa.
Zolder today?
So, what? I don't know what I said, but
you
we're driving Zolder. Turn 1, we've got Erst Bocht, into Sterrenbocht Bocht, into Kanalbocht, into Lucien Bianchi Bocht. We're going fast here. Into the Kleine Chicane, which is a grosse chicane in practice. The Butte, turn 6, and then Gilles Villeneuve Chicane, turn 7, into Terlandbocht. Oh my god, Boulderberg Hallspelbocht is turn 9. We've got the Jochen Rindbocht into the Jackie X Bocht. And that is a very quick lap with a lot of bochts and a lot of Belgian pronunciation that I am trying my best at. Now, the game actually, or this track, it only told us 6 turn names, so I just threw in a bunch of extra ones for you. Thought you'd enjoy that. So, lots of bochts, and there we go.
And in our big overview video that we do with the AI races and everything before every race session, we will have all of the corner names there that Reagan will, again, deftly pronounce.
Yes.
I have to say, I was a little surprised that you didn't know Jochen Rindt. That seemed to stump you. You didn't know Rindt back from, I think, the 70s is when he drove an F1?
I did not, but I'm going to be honest with you. I was flying by the seat of my pants there. I was a good 3 turns behind, and these are some very long turn names. So I had to fit Boulder Garspelbocht into a very small window right after, what is it, Jochen Rind?
Jochen Rindt.
Jochen Rindt. Jochen Rindt. Bocht. Sorry, I need more phlegm in there.
Yeah, we need to get some language lessons from Max Verstappen.
I'm sure he could find the time for us. Very important, we have now swapped over to a damp track. Currently the track is damp. I want to see what tires we are on for our riding team. So we've got Smith, who just had a bit of a moment. Let me actually see if we can grab Jake Smith here. He had a bit of a moment on his outlap. He is on wet tires. We've got
Oh,
Castillo
speaking
on
of a
wet
moment,
tires.
he just got into the wall. Jake Smith.
Oh,
I think that was out of turn 2. Yeah, just lost the rear there. I think that damp track is
right.
starting to bite these drivers already.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And yes, the 2 AM drivers that we have out there are on wet tires. So I think that's usually the right call. Damp is about when you want to make that swap, but all just depends on when exactly that swap happens. So it looks like Jake is continuing at the moment. Maybe the damage isn't so bad. He's doing what he can with what he has. Obviously, our drivers, for those who are not aware, our AM team, or AM class, has 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes of qualifying. The silvers have between 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And then the gold or pro drivers have between 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So each driver, or each class, has a 10-minute window to set the best time that they can. Right now, we've got Nicholas Castillo as the only driver to set a valid lap. He's at a 1:36.487. And again, with our conditions being damp rather than greasy, we are expecting these times to all be worse than what we saw in practice. So there's very little chance we'll be seeing anyone in the 31s, at least for the moment, unless one of our drivers has some magic in him today.
Absolutely. We see Nicholas Castillo right now at 1:36.4, showing a yellow.
We did see Nicholas Castillo, and then we no longer saw Nicholas Castillo. We can go to like a quick 10-second replay.
Yeah.
Unless it didn't go through.
We saw him just rejoining.
It did not go through, so we can.
We got a little bit of it.
Well, yeah, you got the picture.
Look at that weather forecast in 10 minutes. I unfortunately can't see it. Can you enlighten us, Reagan? What we have coming up?
We've got some big rain coming in 10 minutes. That is spicy. Yeah, it's going to a full 2 layers of rain in the estimate. That is going to be a full wet condition, which between our silver drivers and pro drivers, of course, it depends on when it comes, whether our silver drivers will have a chance to set a lap. Theoretically, if our silver drivers are quick, they might be able to set a lap on damp or in damp conditions before it swaps over. But and that is a very big if, as in fact it has just switched to wet, where the track is no longer damp, it is wet. So we are going to be seeing full wet conditions for those qualifying today. Any of our AM drivers who have not yet set a time are going to be a little disappointed because it is going to be quite difficult for anyone to be beating Castillo's time. As we see Jake come through, he was able to come across the line with a 1:37.8 in worse conditions, and it is hard to imagine anyone is going to be improving more than that. We do see Nicholas Castillo. He's 0.4 down on his time at the moment. He is coming up. He's in Sector 2, and he has a... that was actually Jake Smith that had a bit of a moment off screen. He's still going, but definitely down on his delta. Although a little bit, I think he's just invalidated. So it's actually just Nicholas Castillo on a lap, and that lap is not looking particularly fast. 1.5 seconds down on his delta. So I have a feeling our AM class is just about done for the day. We do still have 2 AM drivers who have not left the pits. Confusingly enough, we have Prevo, or I should say just one. We have Prevo, who has not left the pits. Are you aware, Stephen, of any penalties that would have caused him to skip qualifying?
I was just trying to think of that. I don't think I saw anything in the stewards report from the last race. I also don't recall any, serious enough offenses, at least from what we saw on the screen, to warrant something like that. Potentially Bryce just wanting to, play it safe, keep up his focus for the race. Not entirely sure why he decided not to capitalize on that. But yeah, we see Nicholas Castillo returned to garage in that Porsche. He did not think he was going to be improving. Jake Smith currently matching his delta, but I think just started a new lap, so we might see that going down as, just as I say, starts dipping into the red. So I think this will be interesting because we will certainly have a bit of a mixed grid. I'll be curious to see if the track is degrading as quickly as it is. Will the Silvers be able to even beat the times that our AM drivers have set?
That is a great question. As we see, all of our drivers are currently in the pits, so unfortunately, not a lot of exciting action we can give you. Although somebody is driving. Who is driving right now? Jake Smith is driving.
Jake Smith, yep.
Why did Well, that is strange, but Jake Smith is out on track. It is a great question. We've got 136.487, a pretty solid time. Given the conditions, and of course with the conditions getting worse, we have not yet swapped over to the 2 dots or the 2 lines of rain in the estimate. So we see, that Lamborghini is not looking comfortable in these heavy rain conditions. So a 137.8 might be more what our silver drivers are going to be able to do if the rain does get worse as our drivers go out onto track. And speaking of going out onto track, we see Gary Bosman and the other silver drivers who are all now starting up their 10-minute sessions. So they're going to be pushing as hard as they can, I imagine, to be trying to get out there and setting a lap before the conditions get worse, or at least to be able to set as much of their lap in the current conditions as they can, as those conditions may get worse during the lap itself.
Yeah, I'm sure. Going back to Jake Smith, the front end damage that he had for a little bit, I'm sure also wasn't helping his case. This is shaping out to be a very interesting session. We have Charlie Thornton on his outlap, going through the gravel, having a look at what the grip is like out there, trying to see if it's better than on track with the rain. I think he found that it was ultimately slower going through that. I heard an open.
Okay. That was just for a quick replay there for Marcus Ness. That was a replay just to see why he went back to the pits. And it seems like he did because he was not liking how the car was feeling. It doesn't look like anything, no shunt, nothing like that. Just a driver who realized maybe he needed to do something to his pressures before trying to set an actual lap.
And speaking of Marcus Ness, you know what I heard is on the forecast along with this rain?
What is that?
A little bit of PK thunder. No response?
That took me a second. That was good. No, it was good. I respect it. I do respect it. I was not paying enough attention to fully appreciate the quality of joke that you just threw at me. So
we were just talking about this 2 weeks ago.
I know. It's like there was just a screen over my brain for a second.
It's okay. I feel like there's permanently a screen over my brain. Oh, you know what? That actually reminds me. I wanted to have a notebook of things that happened during this race, so we don't get a fog brain like last time and are like, "Oh, what happened to this driver?" And since I'm at work, I have plenty of paper and writing utensils near me, so I will be writing down what we see.
That is fantastic and something I would never do because I am an unorganized slob. So appreciate that, Steven. There was a good chance that you would have all had to deal with just me for 2 hours, and let me tell you, I don't think anybody would have wanted that. It would have just been an absolute mess of a stream. So here we at least get some amount of organization, and maybe, just maybe, we can help you guys try to understand what's actually happening on track. Or what's happening off track? Oh, no, it looks like Marcus was able to keep it on. He got right up onto the curb there. I was anticipating a bit of a spin, but somehow he was able to keep it on track in these conditions. Jake Smith looking like he might be on for something special here. Currently, we do have Gary Bosman in P2. with a 1:37.48, and he is up by almost half a second at the moment. Why don't we take a deeper look at Gary Bosman's lap here? And again, he is 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 up on the delta. He is flying as he gets through the Kleine chicane, but it is a long, tricky lap, so we are just going to have to see if he's able to keep it all together. That is looking pretty clean through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. Sorry, the Gilles Villeneuve. No, it is the chicane. It's not the bocht. Technically, two bochts. It's two bochts for one.
Yeah, he did lose about 4 or 5 tenths through there, so not the best, but still has to finish it out. Might be able to find some time here through the Jochen Rindt bocht. I can't remember what the last ones were, but we have the final. Yes, that is the final chicane that Gary Bosman is coming up on. We saw a yellow flag from Charlie Thornton. We'll have to see once Gary crosses what might have happened with him. Not going to be enough to unseat Nicolas Castillo, but we did see some flashes of purple on Bosman's lap. Just needs to clean up the Gilles Villeneuve chicane and should be able to make up some of that time and try and get a provisional P1. But right now, Nicolas Castillo, our AM driver new for this season, is still on top of the timesheets with less than 5 minutes remaining in silver quali.
Well, the track has gone to full wet. We do have the 2 bars right now. It does look like it's going to get slightly less wet in the next 10 minutes, which is something I'm sure our pro drivers are happy to hear. We're on board with Marcus Ness right now, or rather we're on camera with Marcus Ness, who was up a half second on his best lap. He has dropped now to just a 0.1 delta, 0.2 at the moment, so clearly in these conditions, turn by turn, it's very hard to predict whether a driver is going to be up or down. I mean, we've now got Gary Bosman, who's half a second up. He was able to get through that Kleine chicane a little bit better than last time. That was not the Kleine chicane. Where the heck are we? We are on the...
That was the Villeneuve, right?
Boulder. Was that the Gilles Villeneuve, or was that the...
Yeah, he just went through the Jochen Rindt turn. He's coming up on the final chicane.
Yep, you are completely right. You're completely correct, and he is 0.7 up, so that looked good. I think we are going to have a new pole sitter with a very impressive time here of 36.027. Very quickly behind, we have Charlie Thornton with a 136.425. So we are now starting to see our drivers, our silver drivers, show why they are in the silver class. And now 2 drivers have surpassed Castillo's time, pushing him into 3rd.
Sorry for the silence. I'm just sending some messages to Darren, who has joined the stream. Yeah, very, very impressive lap from Gary, and from, I don't know if you mentioned it, Charlie as well. I just looked up and saw took P2, not super far behind Gary Bosman there. So our silver's starting to find their rhythm a little bit in the heavier rain. But yeah, as the rain continues to get worse, I am still very curious to see what our pro drivers are going to be able to do.
Yes. Again, we are in full wet conditions at the moment with only 2 minutes and 23 seconds before our pros are set loose. Currently, Marcus Ness is half a second up, almost 0.6 seconds up now on his best time, but his best time is not a particularly strong one, just a slower lap that he's now trying to build on. So looks pretty clean, looks neat and tidy there, still 0.6 up. And this will be a nice improvement, I think, yeah, and it does surpass Jake Smith for 5th place, but he is just a little bit off of that the other silver drivers in the top 3, that is Kelvin, Charlie, and Gary. And, of course, Nicholas, who put up a very nice time in slightly nicer conditions with his 36.5.
You know, we see Gary Bosman and Charlie Thornton both flirting with the green, finding a little bit of time on their laps. Not sure if they returned to the pits to get some new tires or if they have just been circling, maybe taking some easy laps, gauging the conditions a little bit to see where the grip is right now. But we see Kelvin going through turn 1, approaching turn 2 here, just about on par with his previous lap. Marcus Ness was about half a tenth up, or sorry, not half a second up. Lost a couple of tenths going through whatever parts of the track he was at. Kelvin on his way up to this is Reagan's favorite chicane, the Kleine chicane, that he really, really wanted Gary Bosman to be at when we were watching him earlier. But yeah, good lap so far from Kelvin. Might get a little bit of an improvement. He will hopefully be wanting to get in front of Nicholas for the start of this race.
Yes, definitely. The Kleine chicane, they call it the Kleine chicane, but it's got a Grossa heart. That's what they say. So, as Charlie just had a bit of a moment there going through, that is the Jackie Ixborg. I don't think there was an improvement on his time. That was an invalid 1:35.1. I'm guessing there was a cut so that he could set another lap, and he was just able to get in with under the 10 minutes. Of course, any driver who starts their lap before their 10 minutes lapses is able to finish their lap. So we do have the pro drivers who are able to get out on track, but that doesn't mean drivers like Gary Bosman and Charlie Thornton, and I believe that is actually the only two of the AM drivers able to set a lap at the moment. They will be able to finish their laps. We have Gary, who's just about 0.1 seconds up on his delta. It looks like Charlie has finished his lap. I think I don't think there was any spin or moment. I think he just had a bad turn, realized he couldn't improve, and has gone back to the pits. So right now, we're watching the last of the silver drivers who is able to improve, and it does look like at the moment a small improvement for Gary if he's able to keep it up. 0.3 seconds. We'll have to see what he can do as the pro drivers are finishing up their out laps.
Yeah, for Charlie, I was curious when we were looking at him earlier, and then the rear views of Bosman, we were able to see Charlie pretty close behind Gary there. I know you mentioned that Charlie just crossed the line in time to start a new lap, but I think he had about 8 or 9 seconds, maybe even 10, in his pocket. So he did not necessarily need to start right behind Gary at the start of that lap. I'm not sure if that threw him off potentially, and that's why he aborted the lap. But yeah, was just curious as to the thought process there. Not sure if he wanted to try and emulate Gary Bosman's lines as Bosman does cross and goes about a quarter of a second faster there, 35.7. Yeah, Charlie coming in chat saying could have gotten pole, but just kept invalidating. Yeah, definitely very, very tricky conditions. Hard to keep it on track here. Charlie unable to improve, but did at least get in front of the AM driver, Nicholas Castillo. And right now just has Gary Bosman in front of him. We've had most of our pro drivers come across the lines finishing their out laps. So don't worry, we don't have 31-minute lap times on the board. They will be improving pretty quickly here. Charlie, still getting used to Fanatec pedals and wheel. I did not know you got some new equipment there, guy. That's very nice. Please let us know what you are now rocking with.
And while we wait to hear, I do believe we have a couple of our drivers who are on their fast laps in the pro category. All, I believe it's 7 of them are currently out on track on laps, and I believe it is it is Carl Nordell who's currently in the lead of these drivers. First one who should be across the line if he is not on his out lap, which I am, to be honest with you, not 100% sure. He's going pretty fast here, whether he's just setting himself up, trying to get some heat in the tires, or whether this is a real lap, we will know for sure in about 2 seconds. And he crosses the line, and that is not a real lap, my friends. That is a fake lap from Carl Nordell, and a real good lap from Oystein Branham, who has now jumped to the top of the tables with a 135.347, very quickly showing himself to be the first of the pro drivers, and as usual, we are going to be expecting to see him at or near the top of the tables, as we have the rest of our drivers starting to come in. Vigard and Richard Walters just a little bit behind, less than a tenth each, and Yvonne Watson coming in just a couple tenths behind with a 35.660. So quickly, we have 4 pro drivers showing why they're in the pro class, up in those top 4 spots, and a couple more drivers, including Pashov, who's on a very nice lap right now, Magnus, who's 0.5 up. Lots of drivers in this pro class are showing why they're in the pro class at the moment. So we're going to be seeing some fast times from these pro drivers. No mixing of the grid, much other than maybe Nicholas Castillo jumping some silvers. But yeah, the pro drivers are not fazed by these conditions and are starting to put up some real fast times.
Yeah, right now our top 3 separated by less than a tenth of a second. I think Brenham is going to come across and finish his lap and spoil that little bit of trivia there for us. He's flirting with 7-8 tenths, lost a little bit in that final chicane, but is going to improve.
Whoa!
But Carl,
not
a
enough.
134.2. Yeah.
Flying with the 34.2. That is wholly unexpected and fantastic. We saw Pashov as well now into the 34.7s, which if we had just ignored Carl for a little bit longer, that would have been massively impressive time on its own. But yeah, Carl just blasting the rest of the pros out of the water at the moment. That is a half a tenth difference, and so quick. That was his first lap of qualifying as well.
Yeah, no fake laps there. That was just immediate pace after he finished up his out lap. Brenham back to the pits, going to be slapping on some new tires, maybe adjusting pressures. That could be why he is currently unable to match Carl Nordell there. Rosen Pashov only 8/1000th of a second behind Brenham there, so that could definitely be a fight to keep an eye on. Pashov just able to stay ahead of his time now. About matching, now about losing just a tad bit on his lap, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Richard Walters, if he does keep up his current pace, will jump both of those 2 drivers, and Magnus Haukeba and Vigard trying to find some time as well. Yvonne, I think, just starting a new lap here. So everybody on track, currently finding time. Carl just losing a little bit there, and then Brenham on those new tires. We are going to need to see what he is able to do, because you mentioned that right about now the rain should be decreasing just a bit, correct?
Yes, and as you say that, we have jumped down from the 2 lines of rain on the estimator to just 1 line. So we're going to see Johansson now go across the line with a 34 flat, a very fast time from him. We have Yvonne, who was 0.6 seconds up on his time. So yes, I think we are going to be seeing a bit of a mad dash here at the end for these drivers to try to set the best times they can in these new conditions. Only 3 minutes left, enough time for 1 out lap if you jump back to the pits. Maybe? No, there's no way to do 2 laps at the moment. I mean, you could do 2 fast laps, and many of our drivers are on fast laps at the moment. But really, this is all to say there is not a lot of time left for these drivers to be setting laps, and with the conditions getting better here, this is going to be a bit of crunch time for our drivers. This is not a lap that someone like Richard Walters, who is 4/10ths up at the moment, can afford to get wrong.
Absolutely. I think someone who is going to be, you were mentioning outlaps and everything, poised to be in a very good position is Oystein Brenham. He was the only pro driver who decided to go back to the pits and take advantage of new tires as those conditions are getting just slightly better. But right now, Richard Walters almost a second up there, losing a little bit of time through the Jochen Rindt box there. But still 6/10ths up. That would just about match him with Vigard for P1.
He's kind of skirting back and forth right now between purple and green. This is going to be very close.
This will be very close. I think he just lost a little bit too much there. Should still put him P2, yes, by 400 over Carl Nordell. He will have 2 opportunities to try and get a new lap in, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes on this lap, which would cost him time. So should be able to get a couple more opportunities there to finesse a potential pole position for Richard Walters, who is in his third solo league race with Bez Racing Team. He came in at the end of last season. We see Carl Nordell 4/10 up, 5/10 up. That would definitely solidify him in P1. Magnus Haukebo showing yellow flag. That is probably the end of his qualifying session. And all of our drivers, except for Richard Walters, who we were just talking about, showing green. So as this rain lets up a little bit and the drivers are understanding more about the track conditions, they are all finding a little bit of time, except Richard, who seems to be maybe pushing just a little bit too much.
Yes, it does look like it. He has gone to red, and Rojan Pashov is now the driver with the biggest delta. But Carl Nordell, 0.2 up, and is showing purple. I am trying my best here to learn how to use mod tools on the fly so I can delete this message.
Oh, same here.
You're also trying... Okay. Mod tools. Mod actions. How do I use a mod action? Just right click. I've right clicked. I'm currently right clicking. It is asking me to save the page as, which does not make sense.
And in Twitch Studio, it also seems to not let me do that. Are there...
Left click. Here? I can pin this message or reply to it. Well...
while we try and navigate how to ban someone and delete a message, we will say Brenham up to P1, 33.7. Carl had improved to a 33.8, but is currently on a lap. We are seeing that black Lamborghini go around. He may have updated his livery, which I was not able to get because I'm at work trying to manage this stream, remote connecting into my PC for those that missed it. So I apologize, Carl, if you did update your livery. But that black Lamborghini does give me some Batman vibes, so that is hopefully carrying you to a current 2/10 improvement. He is the only car on track. This would put him in pole position by about a 10th over Brenham. He just has to nail the chicane, get the power down right, not make any mistakes. He is still showing 2/10 up. He is going to be crossing the line just now, and that is a 33.577 to take pole position over Oystein Brenham. These two drivers, we saw a phenomenal battle last season at Barcelona when Brenham took pole, but Carl in P2 was able to sneak through at T1 on the first lap right after the race started, and it was over an hour-long battle between them. Great racing. I think we are going to be in for an absolute show with this race, with these two drivers starting up at the front. Rosen Pashov, a 33.9. Very, very good time for him. Vigar Johansson, another quick driver. Richard Walters, unfortunately, was not able to improve. We saw some flashes of brilliance from him, but was not able to capitalize and put the lap together. Yvonne Watson and Magnus Haukebo round out our pro drivers. So all 7 of our pros do make it into those top 7 positions. Gary Bosman, our top silver driver, and Nicholas Castillo, our top AM driver.
Yes, you have said it. I'm still trying to figure out how the heck to delete this message. But you're doing a great job with the commentary while I fuddle around on Google.
How about... Shoot, we are...
I need to enable mod icons.
I'm surprised our chatbot thing didn't get that.
I am as well.
Here, I'm gonna go on Twitch on my work computer because that would not obstruct your view of the screen. And how can I channel stream chat? Okay, I've at least found how to block them. So I don't know if they can post going forward. But yeah, like right click.
Aha! I did
Wow.
it. You have to enable mod icons.
Ah,
That is how you do it.
you
Thank
will have
you.
to teach me your secret ways later.
I will. It was very difficult. I do charge by the minute. So I hope you can afford me, but you probably can't.
Oh, I accidentally pinned a message. Um, Charlie is saying CSL pedals. We
Here,
can,
I will unpin this message.
wow, we are
I I
doing
know
great.
how to. I am an experienced Twitch mod now. So luckily for everyone here, you have reliable moderation to rely on. So nobody's gonna be saying anything that we don't want you to see.
And we also have a reliable Belgian pronunciation with us that didn't really make sense, but
That didn't make
you're,
sense.
you're good at saying the names, or at least trying to say the names. So
Depending.
how about we go into this overview video?
Oh, why not? I could stand to say one or two more books.
Alrighty, let's take a look.
All right. So as you may notice at the bottom, we do not have a real-world GT3 pole lap time, real or in-game lap time best of 126.5. Of course, we are driving Zolder here. Heading into turn one, this is Erst Links, not Bocht, Links. Before we jump into Sterrenwacht Bocht of turn two, very long, lazy turn that almost jumps or groups up with the Canal Bocht. Essentially, one long turn there, turns 2 and 3. Before we go into the Lucien Bianchi Bocht, apparently an overtaking opportunity. If you want to go around the outside there, be my guest. I wouldn't recommend it, but crazier, better drivers than me have tried. Turn 5, we've got the Kleine chicane with the Grosse bumps. Very tricky chicane to get right if you want to be fast. Going into this, technically a turn before Butte. And then now we hit the Villeneuve chicane, yet another chicane. Classic of Zolder are the many chicanes. Another tricky one to get right. Before we get into the Terlambocht, or Terlamenbocht, I should say. Getting down to, I guess you could call it a back straight. It's not really. Little section before the hairpin of the Boulderberg Bocht into the Jochen Rhein Bocht, maybe? Jochen Rhein? I've already forgotten. You said it about 4 times. Before the Jackie X Bocht. Also, not necessarily a Bocht, it's 2 Bochts in one. A chicane there. And that is the end of a quite quick lap of Zolder. So tricky track, lots of chicanes, couple hairpins, not a lot of space, and no pole lap, as we mentioned before. 30 seconds left to go before the race starts.
Oh, and let me make sure. Let me go into ACC. We have to get rid of all these background menus. Should be good now. Oh no.
It's looking good.
It's doing the thing where it won't let me move the windows on TeamViewer.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Just give me 1 second. I will have to close. And come back in. And now, can I minimize? I cannot. This is perplexing.
It is just a little bit, isn't it?
Oh, I saw a pink Lamborghini off in the background there.
Oh, did you? We've got Jake Smith here, trying to keep the tires warm. Maybe a little
Can we
too
do
emphatic about that. We can certainly do a replay. Let's see what we got. Here's Jake Smith just in the back, starting second from the back in that pink Lamborghini. A very nice, aesthetically pleasing color, really pops. Coming around turn 1, the Erste Links, and oh, that is, yeah, a little bit enthusiastic on the tire warm-up. Luckily, does not hit the wall. Certainly will warm up the tires. So, good job by Jake Smith, taking some unintuitive or finding creative ways to keep the tires warmed up in our outlap.
Yeah, just a little bit of an interesting line, but he did keep it clean, kept it out of the wall, just exploring the limits of grip over through turn 1.
That is a good way to put it. He's exploring the limits of grip on his on the formation lap, which is, of course, what all of the best drivers do.
And while we wait for the race to get started, we will go ahead and throw up a position delta, so we know how many positions everyone gains or loses, and we'll also get our race gaps up, so we can see all of that lovely information when we get started.
Got our drivers coming around the Boulderberg Harspelbocht right now. By the time I finish saying the word, we're already heading down to the Jackie X Bocht. Just a little bit of time left before our race starts. Once again, we've got Oystein Brenham starting in second place. Not at the start, or not at the front of the grid. And once again, we're going to have to see if, this time it's Carl Nordell, is able to keep him behind. We've got, of course, Pasha with a very fast lap, Vigard very fast in qualifying and practice as well. There's just a little bit of time left before we start, and then all questions will be answered as we have the green light. That looks like a good start for Carl Nordell. Pashov has been passed by Johansson. Looks pretty clean there as the drivers in the back are trying to sort things out, and that is a clean and solid first lap and first turn for Carl Nordell, who's able to start comfortably in the lead. It does look like Brenham got a bit of a run there, but not enough to make anything happen. So that is going to be, at least for the first sector, we've got Carl Nordell holding the lead. Looks like Charlie Thornton with a pass on Gary Bosman, and we also have, it looks like, Nicholas Castillo with a bit of an incident at the start.
With Jake Smith.
Yes, Jake, it looks like, is able to continue on, but Castillo was a little worse for wear.
And Charlie Thornton.
We've got Thornton and Haukebo with a bit of a tap. Again, neither of them seem, as that is a bigger tap. That is an even bigger tap. Lots of taps happening at the back. But nothing major. It looks like every driver is still going. So lots of little bits happening, but no big shunts at the moment, other than Nicholas Castillo, which we might have to try to go back for later on. Brenham is 0.5 behind Carl Nordell. Looks like we've got 0.4, 0.5 deltas on just about everyone in the top 6. Again, everyone is close. Nobody's close enough to make a move at the end of a very tumultuous first lap.
Yeah, and it's qualifying first laps. I can't even talk. First laps that are faster than what we saw in qualifying. So kind of like Spa last year, we got teased with rain in qualifying, but none going on at the moment. Did you already mention if there was any rain in the forecast coming up?
There is currently no rain in the forecast. As we see, it looks like Brenham does have a bit of a run here. Whether he goes for it into the chicane, he chooses not to. But right on the back of Carl Nordell. Yeah, we currently have a fast track and no signs of rain in the estimate, in the forecast. So once again, we're getting tricked by, or deceived by the team putting on the race, calling for rain but not getting it. Oh, and we've got Prevost. Oh, okay, we're going to have to do a quick 10-second replay here. Here's Bryce Prevost, who just took too much speed into that turn and bangs into the wall. That is a big shunt for Prevost, who's down into second to last place at the moment. So not a great start for Bryce, who's down into 13th. He's not going to be happy with that one so early on. That's going to be a lot of damage. I mean, the pit window is quite generous, but it is not open, I believe, for another 7 minutes or so.
I think it might be 4. I think it's 7.5 minutes on either side of the race after the race starts and before the race ends. But yeah, I mean, Provo, he had a really, really good first lap. He was up about 3 or 4 positions. But yeah, just pushing a little bit too hard on that lap 2 as we are on board with Kelvin Niedermeisers.
I'm going to jump to a replay because that looked like this might have been a very nifty overtake here. So we've got, this is Kelvin currently behind Charlie Thornton, I believe, and there we see, Gary Bosman. Gary Bosman, just a little tricky in turn 1, gets into the grass and is not comfortable on the outside. So that is Kelvin taking advantage and getting across into that P9. And as we say that, we're going to have to jump over to our top 2 for another replay because we now have Oystein Brenham, who is taking the lead.
Did he?
Oh, shoot. He took the lead, and then immediately it looks like they're going side to side, so we're going to have to jump back here and see what happens. It looks like Carl gets into the grass.
No, Carl.
And there is Brenham. He's still okay, and that's Brenham and Carl going side by side. Now, I think going into the hairpin, Carl might have kept this on the inside. And yes, it does look like he was able to keep it. Apologies for that jump on the replay. But yes, Carl Nordell was able to hold on to that position. There's a giant bunch-up of drivers now in that top 6. Too much going on to keep track of. Certainly too much to be doing replays at the moment. As we have Pashov, who is, looks like to have jumped Yvonne Watson on the start of that lap. So just drivers going all over the place. Richard Walters is 0.1 behind, but not able to make a move into the chicane, the Kleine chicane. So he's having to hold back. But there is, oh no, that's Carl Nordell, who has gone off. And he's dropped all the way to the back. We're going to do a quick 10-second replay here, as it does look like the Kleine chicane has given him a big shunt. That is Carl Nordell, who's holding out at the front. He is now down to P8 and on in a car that probably does not want to be driving right now. That was a big shunt for him, which puts Oystein Brenham into the lead once again.
That's a real shame for Carl. Huge bummer. Of course, he does have a quick car. He has fastest lap right now, but with the damage that he's carrying, we'll have to see how well he can make it back through the field and how high he can finish. But that does gift both Johansson and Walters a pretty nice opportunity to be right behind Brenham. Johansson holding on to about a second, maybe a little bit less, depending on where they are on track of a gap. So they are sticking very close, but of course we do know Brenham to turn on the guns once the race has started and start to build that gap that he so expertly crafts. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, see if Johansson is able to stick with it. But yeah, really, really unfortunate for Carl Nordell there.
Yes, agreed. I mean, Carl, he's still down in P8. Currently has the fastest lap by almost 0.3. We do have Brenham, Johansson, and Richard, all with fastest laps right around that 130.6, 130.7. Interestingly, Charlie Thornton actually has a 130.537. That is the second fastest lap of the race. Now, that's of course ignoring if Carl had multiple laps faster than that. But regardless, that is Charlie Thornton, our silver driver, who has found some mighty pace in the dry. So we might have to be keeping an eye on him as this race unfolds to be pushing for some of those top spots.
Yeah, it seems that new wheel pedals and wheelbase might be coming into fruition for him. Starting to find some nice pace with that new equipment. As you say, we will definitely have to keep an eye on him, as Gary Bosman is very, very close to the back of Kelvin. We will also be keeping an eye on that battle. But yeah, Oystein Brenham, 29.65 on the first lap, where he is fully out of the way of Carl Nordell there. I think we are going to start to see a bit of a gap being built up by him.
Yeah, no surprise there. We do have Richard Walters with a 29.9. So another driver who's been able to jump into the sub 130, but that's still 3/10 off, and he does have Vigard, who he would need to pass before even considering a move. And that is, of course, only if Vigard himself isn't able to pick up the pace, which I would not be shocked if we see him jumping into those sub 30s sooner rather than later. So lots of drivers who are able to be putting up these quick times, but none quite as quick as Waystein Brennan. A story as old as time, or to be more specific, as old as a season and 2 races. So once again, it is on Brennan to Brennan's shoulders to keep it clean and find a way to win this race. And knowing him and how consistent he can be, it's going to be an uphill battle for anyone to try to challenge that.
Absolutely. We might need maybe a slightly stronger moment than what we saw at Spa, where Charlie had that connection issue very briefly, and Oystein got into the back of him, but still went on to the win of the race. Maybe we need a couple more connection issues to give Brenham a little bit more damage and give the rest of our drivers a fighting chance to keep up.
One can only hope. The only thing I dream about at night these days is one of our drivers being able to challenge Oystein Brennan at the front. It's unfortunately at the moment more of a dream than a hope. So we'll have to see if somebody can prove me wrong. Richard Walters with a bit of a run here, but again, going into this Kleine chicane, you can technically go side by side if you're a maniac, and if you really trust the driver beside you. The smarter move is to wait and try to get the move done into Butte and then into the Gil Villeneuve chicane. That is Richard Walters with a beautiful move to get past Vigard for P3. Wonderful stuff there, taking his time. And one thing that we're seeing here is...
Oh, no!
Well, that's not good. That is not good. That was... I just noticed that Magnus had dropped a couple spots.
30
do a replay here.
30 seconds. Yep.
So that is what I noticed on the timing board. Was Magnus, we see here, had a spin into the wall on the Kleine chicane. Here's him getting back up to speed as we've got, that is Gary Bosman getting by him. And now I believe this was Marcus Ness. And those two then coming together. So Magnus with a 30 seconds to forget there. That is not good. And that does push him and Marcus Ness into the back of the grid with Nicolas Castillo up to P12.
Yeah, I almost feel like I want to see that again sometime later. I couldn't even tell, what happened, if it was Magnus moving to the right a little bit or Marcus coming over from the left, or from the right to the left. My wording there was poor, but hopefully our viewers understood what I meant there. Yeah, not sure what happened that ultimately led to that contact. It just seemed very random for that to happen, but maybe Marcus being a little bit too opportunistic, trying to get ahead of Magnus, who had made that mistake. Maybe Magnus was being a little bit too defensive of that position, making sure he didn't fall back any further than he already had. But he is already back on the back of Nicolas Castillo, having a little bit of a look to the inside through the chicane, where on the last lap he had that unfortunate spin, which we caught the end of. Still on the back of Castillo. Wouldn't be surprised if he is able to make a move soon. We move over to Charlie Thornton, who is in a heated battle with Carl Nordell, who is back up to, I think he was in P8 earlier, if memory serves. So up to P7 and now to P6. So he is making short work of the field, definitely working on trying to get up as high as possible. That damage not holding him back at all. And Magnus Hakobo was able to make the move on Castillo there, so starting his own fight back, but definitely for those two drivers, a race so far to forget. But 62 and a half minutes left, still plenty of time to make something happen. Push these tires, get on some new rubber midway through. Sorry for the voice crack there. Get on new rubber, hopefully not need to take fuel, and see what they can do in the back half of this race.
Well, to give you some information is, I
How
don't have time to give you
about
information.
another
That is
yellow
Magnus with another yellow. We can do a quick 10-second here. 10 seconds not enough, it looks like, as he, that is the Kleine chicane once again, I believe, that he is now gone off on once again. No, that is not the Kleine chicane. I have no idea where he is, to be completely honest with you, but I don't really have any idea what's going on most of the time. So he went off somewhere on Zolder, into the gravel, last place. Not a great race for him. I was about to say that we do now have, in 30 minutes, a bit of rain on the radars. We see Gary Bosman going down the inside of Kelvin Neimers. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who knows? Here is a side-by-side. Neither one of them wants to give this up. And now going into the Jackie X chicane, it does look like Kelvin was a little more brave on the brakes, but that meant that Gary might have been able to set himself up for a run down the front straight. It does not look like it was enough, but I would not say this battle is over just yet. Great fighting between Kelvin and Gary Bosman at the moment. Up the grid, we do have Carl, who's 0.3 behind Yvonne, and we may have to jump over to that one right now, as going down towards the Kleine chicane. It does look like Carl's feeling a little racy, maybe just poking his head out there. He's not going to go for anything, but maybe setting himself up for a move into the Villeneuve chicane.
Yeah, he is definitely on the hunt, but up ahead, Brenham still leads. The gaps amongst the top 2 through 5 positions, they have increased quite a bit, so no close fights in the top 5 right now. The closest battle, we have Carl on Yvonne, but all of our other drivers about 2 to 4 seconds behind. The car ahead of them in our top position. So interesting that it went from very close battles to folks spreading out by quite a margin. But yeah, we still.
As we see, that was Gary who realized maybe he was too brave on the brakes, brave to the point of reckless, and he had to take some avoiding action there on Kelvin. So that gap is now closed up a little bit. Agreed. It is interesting. We've seen these gaps get a bit smaller. What a camera view. That is a terrible camera view. We need to remember that one. That's it keeps doing that, and it never works. But I think what's interesting, we do have is Magnus there again taking a little bit of avoiding action. He might be getting frustrated now, trying to work his way back with some pretty significant damage. What we're going to be looking for is a couple of things. For one, we've got drivers like Carl Nordell, who dropped back. He was one of the fastest drivers on the track. He obviously started in the pole position before his spin, so we are expecting to see him to make his way back up the grid, which is going to provide some entertainment. As we see here, he's behind Yvonne. Other drivers like Magnus, another fast driver who's fallen a bit back after some poor luck, poor driving, a bit of both. And then, of course, we have the rain coming. So that completely changes all of the pit strategies our drivers may be expecting. We have Marcus Ness now, who seems to have had a moment. Not sure what that moment was, but obviously just a small one. He seems no worse for wear. But yes, with that rain coming in 30 minutes, any of these drivers who have damage now have to decide if it is it's better off to stay out there and just deal with that damage until it's time to change potentially onto wet tires, or if it's better just to fix that damage, take that hit in the pits. Almost never is unless you really have some bad damages. The pit lane here is not the longest, but it's also not the longest lap time, so lots to consider, and I think we're going to be seeing some storylines build up as this race progresses.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Steven is gone. He got sick and tired of this race. And you know what? I was sick and tired of talking to him anyways.
Could you not hear me?
Oh, you're back.
I was talking, and then I was like, "Oh, rude, Reagan! You're just talking over me." Sure. No, I was gonna say for me at least, I feel like when it comes to any damage, especially aero in the rain, it feels. Well, I'll start off in the dry. light damage can be manageable. In the rain, I feel like it does affect the performance of the car just that little bit more. It kind of exacerbates those issues. So I would think for those drivers that maybe have like 4, 5, 6, like less than 10 seconds of damage, they might go ahead and take that penalty just to get that car fixed, deal with any of those handling issues that might get worse once the track is wet. Especially if they have the gap behind them, as I was talking about before, gaps are starting to increase amongst all of our drivers here. So if you have the gap behind you, you might as well get that damage fixed, get some increased confidence in your car for the rest of the race. But as you mentioned, if it is much more than that, you might want to consider just trying to deal with it so you don't lose too much track position, and hope that some other drivers around you might make some mistakes as long as you can keep it clean.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Right now we're seeing Oystein Brenham currently as known. Oh, he had maybe a little bit of a moment there. We can always hope. Oystein with the current fastest lap of 28.9. He is cruising off into the distances. We have Charlie now. Well, let's do a bit of a replay here on Charlie Thornton. We've got some action as we were about to talk about, having a pretty quiet race at the moment. We have Charlie who's going through, I believe that is turn 4. I believe that was a Lucien Bianchi-Bocht. Coming up into the Kleine chicane, and as everyone can expect from the Kleine chicane, there's going to be moments, and that is a shunt into the wall for Charlie Thornton, who is now dropped into P10, which has allowed a couple drivers, including Gary Bodman, to jump up into P8, and only 3/10 behind Kelvin Neimers. I really wish I could figure out these pronunciations, but it does mean as... Oh! What the heck just happened? That is Kelvin going into the pits. That's why that was so confusing. Kelvin, our first driver to go into the pits, as we also have Charlie, who is now going into the pits. Two drivers deciding to do pit stops now, even with the rain on the radar, hoping that... either hoping that the tracks never get wet enough to switch over, and I'm going to jump to a replay here because I believe Carl just made a move on Yvonne. Drivers hoping that that the track never gets past greasy, and just needing to get rid of that damage. So right now we're watching Carl Nordell. He is creeping up on Yvonne Watson. This is a replay here, as we noticed he made the move. So it looks like Yvonne gets into the gravel there on turn 4, Lucien Bianchi-Bocht, and a relatively simple overtake for Carl Nordell back into P5, and cruising back up with that damage on his car. Obviously, again, the pole sitter of this race had a shunt in the Kleine chicane, turn 5, and has been making his way back from P8 up to P5. Lap times looking very good for him, a 30.182 last lap, whereas Pashov in front, a 30.577. In fact, I wonder if I can do a little comparison. No, I can't. I think, Stephen, only you can do the comparisons, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry, who did you want to compare?
It's okay. I said the numbers. That's what's important. As we see Magnus now gets past Nicholas Castillo with that crappy camera angle that ACC TV really wants us to use. So a nice move for Magnus, who of course dropped down to the back, is back up to P10, continuing on with the damage.
Yeah, going back to Charlie in the pits, I mean, we saw after his hit with the wall, the damage on the front end of his McLaren did not look good at all. Not surprised that he came into the pits, but it will be, further damaging his race if and when that rain does come, because he will have put air in his tires to deal with the current conditions, but as soon as that rain comes, his tire pressures are going to plummet, and that is going to even further hurt his race. If the other drivers wait until that rain comes to change their tires, if they stick to dries, they can at least pressure them up quite a bit so that they are optimized for that wet weather running. So definitely not an ideal situation that Charlie Thornton finds himself in at the moment, but hopefully he'll be able to make something of this race, as we see Kelvin, who had also made his pit stop, came out right behind Marcus Ness, is only 4/10 behind Ness at the moment, and on actually, I'm not sure, did he take tires?
So
Can you see
it
his stoplight?
says that is odd. It says that he
As
is in the
Marcus
pits.
Ness,
As Ness just went off, and that's an easy overtake. I'm taking a look here, and what is interesting is Kelvin still has to do his pit stop. And it showed that he was stationary for 0 seconds.
did he have a drive-through?
I wonder if he had a drive-through. I don't think it would tell us that anywhere here. Penalty drive-through cleared. Yes, it does tell us that. He had to clear a drive-through. What that drive-through was for, I am not 100% sure, as we see Ness going into the pits, and I believe this is a real pit stop because he does not have a drive-through showing on my instance of ACC. So that is simply a drive-through penalty that Kelvin had to serve. And maybe for track limits, it's very easy to go over track limits on this track. So unfortunate for Kelvin, as of course we were having a lot of fun watching him and Gary go at it. But I'm sure Gary will appreciate having a bit of a break from that fight.
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Awesome. With the buttons on my phone, sometimes I can't tell if it actually is pressed or not. Definitely not what Kelvin would have wanted. And so early in this race, I mean, you need to almost really try to get 3 track warnings in just about 25 minutes. I mean, it is possible, but you would think after the first 1 or 2, he would have tried to keep it within the lines a little bit more, but no, he was pushing, and I guess with 25 minutes to get his first one, there's 50 minutes left in this race. At that rate, he could get 2 more drive-throughs by the time this race is over. So we'll keep an eye on Kelvin, see if he does have any more drive-through penalties come through. And Jake Smith, who we saw on the not even the opening lap, but the warm-up lap, go off at T1, as we said, exploring the limits of grip. He has had a pretty solid race for himself. I mean, he's been able to capitalize on some mistakes and penalties for other drivers, but he's up 5 places from where he started, running a very respectable 8th, and that puts him P1 in AM, right?
It does indeed. Prevost 2nd place and almost 12 seconds behind. Over 12 seconds behind, almost 13 seconds behind, is the 2nd AM driver. So yeah, Jake Smith having a great little race here. I guess maybe he was, in fact, able to find the limits of grip with that little move, as we have, Charlie Thornton. We're gonna go to a replay on Charlie here to see what happened to him. Not the best race, and I already see outside of the replay, it looks like Marcus Ness is also under a caution. So lots going on at the back of the grid at the moment. We're watching Charlie here in the McLaren coming down into the Villeneuve chicane, and maybe just... that was an interesting one. It is hard to say just from that camera angle what exactly happened. It does look like Charlie trying to go down the inside. And
I saw a puff of dust come up. I think he got his left side tires in the grass there, couldn't slow down, and dove to the inside as kind of an evasive maneuver. So I don't think he was intentionally trying to overtake. I think he was just trying to catch his car and stay safe, but went in the same direction that Marcus Ness ultimately was going for that corner.
And that is unfortunate for both drivers, and we are not on an instant replay at the moment. So we will swap that over. Thank you kindly, Steve. But not... you never like to see an incident like that if you are correct and he got in the grass. Very difficult to break once you've got in the grass like that. not much to be done. So really unfortunate for that to be happening to both drivers who are at the back of the grid, already not having their favorite races.
Yeah, and we saw a few laps ago Carl get around Yvonne after Yvonne got into the gravel at the same corner that they're coming up now. But Yvonne has been able to stick pretty close to the back of Carl Nordell, who earlier in this race had the fastest lap. So Carl, I'm not sure if it's just tire conservation, making sure that they do get to the point when it rains, that he can make his tires and potentially his fuel as well get to that point. Or if Yvonne has just turned on the afterburners and is able to keep up. But yeah, definitely a very respectable effort by Yvonne to stick on the back of Carl there.
Well, I have a feeling Yvonne might be putting on the burners a little bit. His last lap was a 29.98. Only Richard Walters and Oystein Brennan were faster. Carl Nordell with a 30.23. So Yvonne is putting up some good times, although I think he might have just had a moment because he has dropped from 1.5 all the way down to a 3-second gap. So that was a quick second and a half that he just lost. Not sure exactly how it happened, but it does mean that Yvonne with more of a hill to climb if he does in fact want to be challenging Carl for that P5 again. What this also means is that Carl Nordell may have hit the limits, certainly has hit the limits of any easier spots for him to overtake. And that is, of course, not to say that Carl was an easier driver or I should say, not to say that Yvonne was an easy driver to get past, but we're looking at lap times here, and for the first time in a while, we are seeing Carl, who is not putting down faster times than the drivers in front. Pashov with a 30.335, Carl with a 30.395, and all of the drivers in front, bar Vigard, who had a 30.595, have been faster than Carl, as we have to very quickly go over because he has a yellow. We're going to do a quick replay here. Going through the Kleine chicane, and he gets completely airborne, and generally, cars don't like that. Cars are not planes. That is well-established theory in racing, and Carl's car was not happy with that. So, bit of a spin, did not affect him as bad as it could have. Just put him down into 6th place again, and 10 seconds about back from Yvonne. So, I'm sure he's not happy with that, but the car is still driving, no shunt into the wall, and that does just add some more excitement as Carl keeps climbing up that hill, and the boulder keeps pushing him back down.
Something I was thinking about earlier is the fact that when we refer to a driver as flying, it's always in a positive context, like a driver's flying, they're going super fast, but when they are literally flying, like we just saw Carl over some of those curbs, it is definitely not good. That does cost quite a bit of time. So I always find that interesting. Should we start saying that a driver who is going very fast is just driving?
First of all, I think we should applaud your wordsmanship as we see that's Nicholas Castillo getting past Kelvin Nimels there, so not sure exactly what happened. Kelvin has been putting up pretty solid times at 31.557, almost a second, and almost more than a second faster than Nicholas on the last lap, as we might see him fighting back here. I mean, to say that a fast driver is driving, would you not say that a slow driver is driving, Stephen? Where is the differentiator?
Well, if anything, should we refer to slow drivers as flying? Because again, when we go to Carl, like he flew, spun, that cost him a lot of time and made him go slow. So if anything, I think we got to flip the narrative that currently exists, like a slow driver is flying, a fast driver is simply driving.
But that being said, if you're a slow driver, how do you drive fast enough to get airborne? This is just simple physics.
But you don't want to be airborne when you're driving. So if anything, you want to, instead of flying, just be driving. And the better you are driving, the faster you go.
I would agree with you there. But I think the thing is that you're driving so fast that like you could be like airborne. Like you're driving like, oh my god, this guy's got so much speed, like he could get some lift off the ground. As we see here, Kelvin looks like he wants to make a move. Maybe let's get a heli cam for this one. Going down the inside, Nicholas is amenable to it, but wants to fight back. That is some good racing from both drivers. Nicholas giving the space, but also making sure that he can get on the throttle quickly. So going down into the X chicane, but only so much fight he has in him for Kelvin, who is a class above Nicholas, and that is Kelvin up into P11, Nicholas settling back into P12.
Going back to our flying driving conversation, I think you can ask Mark Webber, a driver who has had many airborne incidents, and he will tell you that going airborne is not actually A, faster, or B, something you want to do.
I mean, I would agree that it's not something you want to do, but if one was flying, you like, have you ever seen a slow airplane, Stephen? No. No, you have not ever seen a slow airplane, because if there was a slow airplane, it would be on the ground.
I mean, Cessnas go pretty slow.
What's slow?
I mean, they go at, I think they only need like 60 or 70 knots to maintain
Is that true?
a cruising altitude. Yeah, no, I mean, let's do some Googling. Cessna 172 cruising speed. I don't know where I got that information from. They stall around 47 knots. But they cruise at 122. That's about 226 kilometers an hour. That's pretty fast. Maybe don't listen to me about these things.
I don't listen to you for anything. Don't worry, Stephen.
Okay.
I made a lovely gingerbread latte yesterday. I found a recipe for gingerbread lattes. And, Stephen, let me tell you, it has very little to do with racing, but I do need to tell you about it. It was delicious.
I was just going to say, I feel like this stream has become a stream about planes and coffee. But thing about cars.
Here's the thing. We've got rain coming in 10 minutes. Somewhere in the next 10 minutes, we've got like a tiny itty-bitty bit of rain, because we do have, in 30 minutes, there's going to be no rain. So at worst, we're going to be seeing a greasy track, but that is still interesting. So for the next 10 minutes, until we get that rain, why not tell you about my gingerbread latte? Because we already know what the interesting points are coming. We're going to see our drivers fighting through these awkward conditions. Right now, the track's optimum. We've got Pashev about 1.2 seconds back of Vigard. We've got Jake Smith is fine, but the game wants us to believe he's not. Rather, our is telling us that he's not. So I'm going to tell you about my gingerbread latte, Stephen. It uses real ginger, which is the big selling point.
Oh.
Yeah, you zest up the ginger. As we see, Pashev doing a bit of rally driving there. Keeps it on track, as any good rally driver would. Take some cinnamon, some nutmeg, some vanilla, and a little bit of brown sugar, and then you muddle all that up, like you mix it in with the milk as you steam it. Then you get your espresso shots, and then you put all that together. You try to foam or froth the milk. It's very difficult to froth the milk when it's got all that stuff in it, but you try your best. Get some whipped cream on top, and then a couple chunks of like ginger, a little bit of nutmeg, just enough for fun, and there you go. There's a gingerbread latte. It is amazing.
That sounds amazing. I will say my fiance Sarah, she's a redhead. There was a recipe once that called for a little bit of ginger. I took a knife and I took a little bit out of her. She was not happy about that.
I can imagine.
It was a delicious meal, but she was not happy that I was essentially cannibalizing her a little bit.
Well, what's important actually, or what's very helpful, is if you freeze your ginger, then it makes it a lot easier to grind it, because it's not.
I see.
So maybe you should have just chucked her in the freezer for a little while beforehand, and then she would have been so numb she wouldn't have even noticed.
Exactly. Yes. No. That's a great idea. I'll go to a home improvement store later, I'll make sure I get a human-sized refrigerator as Jake Smith brings his Lamborghini into the pits. I'm sure he is not thinking about human-sized refrigerators as he makes his pit stop. Again, we were talking earlier about making a pit stop before the rain and how that may not be the best idea. I'm sure when the race started, Jake probably saw, oh, no rain on the radar for the next 30 minutes. Probably going to be a dry race. He made it to just about the halfway mark. He probably thought it was going to be an easy half and half race, and unfortunately didn't have the fuel to keep going, or the tires to keep going after he saw that rain on the radar. So he was probably forced into making this stop against his wishes. He's probably going to have to cope with that as much as possible. But Jake Smith, who was our leading AM driver, relinquishes that to Bryce Prevost, who is now P1, and Nicholas Castillo, who in a little bit, once Jake comes back out on track, we're going to see the gap between those two drivers. It's just shy of 30 seconds, it looks like. So will be interesting to see what that will look like once the rain comes and Prevost and Castillo make their eventual pit stops. But will definitely be an interesting race for Jake Smith that we'll keep tabs on.
Definitely will be. One thing to keep in mind for that little bit of time that the rain comes down, of course, that does slow down lap times as the rain comes. We're going to see probably a good, depending on how thick the rain is, as we have Jake Smith with a stop-go 30. What Jake must have sped in the pits. He currently has a stop-go 30 on the docket. He was leading the AM class by quite a bit, but that is going to be, a stop-go is going to be about 60 to 70 seconds of time loss for him. So that is just heartbreaking for Jake, who's had a quiet but very strong race at the moment. It will be interesting because he's about 30 seconds ahead of the other AM drivers in net once we see those drivers do their pit stops. But that does mean he'll be coming out almost 30 seconds behind the next AM driver once he does that stop. So really, really sad stuff for Jake Smith. I've already forgotten what I was going to say. I was just too excited about the penalty.
It is excited, or I can't talk.
It is excited, isn't it? That penalty has never been more excited in its life.
I was going to say it is easy to get excited about penalties. Would be more excited if it were for Mr. Brenham up there, but he continues to streak away with a 9-second gap to Richard Walters in P2 after 26 laps. That's about 0.3 of a second a lap that he has been putting over Richard. And to Johansson, who is, for some quick math, 9 plus 19 is 28 seconds. That is roughly, or actually over a second a lap faster. So Brenham, a few tenths ahead of Walters per lap on average, and over a second in front of Johansson, and even faster compared to everyone else that is on track right now. So Brenham absolutely dominating Zolder. We see, Carl's still behind. Oh, Marcus Ness in the wall.
This is the replay here that we will be watching of Marcus Ness. This is the Jackie X chicane he's going around. That looked okay. The back end maybe stepping out a tiny bit, but no harm, no foul as he crosses the line, goes into turn 1, where I have a feeling we're going to see something happen. Everything's looking okay, and things are no longer looking okay. He is in the wall, and that is a big shunt for Marcus Ness.
I thought I was getting confused with some of the BMWs. It was easy to see there when we had two of them back-to-back that they have the same livery.
They do have the same livery. Let's see. We've got, that's Marcus Ness, and it's not Jake. He's in the pink car, I think. Yeah, he's in the pink Lambo. We've got Charlie in the McLaren. That's Castillo in the Porsche. Kelvin. There's Prevost in the only Ferrari. He's had a quiet race so far, if I'm remembering correctly. Marcus Ness. Whoa! That doesn't look good. We're going to go to another replay and forget about everything we were saying. We've got Marcus Ness just behind Jake Smith here, and coming up into the Villeneuve chicane. that looked okay. That did not look okay. Look, he was fine. And little squirrely. Yeah, that car does not look very drivable right now. And there it is. He is. Ooh, that is a big shunt and some fantastic avoiding action from Castillo. Somehow avoiding. I would love to see that from another angle, and we might have to keep an eye on that one for later. 32:30. I want to mark that down. Actually, Steven, you can mark that down because I'm terrible at markers.
I was just going to say, I forgot. I opened that notebook. Haven't written a single thing in it, so this will be the first note.
So 32:30. I want to see just how close Castillo got to getting pasted by Ness. That was a very interesting event there. I'm not even sure if Marcus was on the brakes. He may just not have realized that everything was lost. And that is his race. We see he is red flagged. He is in the pits, and I don't think... I mean, he may come back out, but his race is essentially over at this point.
Yeah, when you return to garage like that during the race, it does lock your controls for a good few minutes, kind of simulating similar to iRacing, like when you get a tow from on track. So it will be a few minutes before his controls are unlocked, but then it is also going to take a few minutes to get what I assume to be quite a bit of damage to that car fixed before that car is ready to come back out, as Richard Walters comes into the pits with 31 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. That also seems like an early pit stop. I would have thought all of these drivers would have wanted to wait until the rain comes, and Nicholas Castillo also in.
As you say that, the rain has come. We are on a greasy track at the moment, and we are actually seeing the rain is going to increase just a little bit in the next 10 minutes, which does mean we're going to be seeing greasy conditions for a while. So we can expect lots of drivers to be out here in tricky conditions. We're going to have to keep a close eye on the status board to see if any caution flags fly up, because now is when we are 100% definitely going to see which of our drivers are comfortable on this track and understand the levels of grip that they have, and which ones might be a little too eager with the track getting a little moist.
I love a little bit of moisture on my track.
I do not, Steven. I do not. That's why I race. That's why I race in iRacing, because I'm a scared little boy, and the rain is oh so very difficult. You've got Richard Walters. Somebody had something happen. I know that's not very specific for all the all the viewers, but something definitely just happened to someone, and I'm not sure who it is.
Walters was showing a white flag for a little bit. I'm not sure if he was slowing down for something or if he actually did go off track. But very quickly, I will mention Jorge in the chat. Good to see you. We are doing well. Just enjoying a little bit of a newly rained on track as Castillo was flashing yellow, but I'm not sure if that was just for exiting the pit lane. I know he was recently in.
Yeah, I think I noticed that Richard Walters, he was showing as like a slow car 4 or 5 times when he was going at a normal pace. So, as usual, ACC TV is almost very good. And sometimes just a little weird. But, for now, we do have about half of our grid who has completed their pit stops. Half of the grid has not. So Richard Walters in P7, but he's more realistically, I believe he was P2. And we're just going to see how all of these spots shake out. Now is a good time to go into the pits. Of course, again, with lap times, they seem to be dropping pretty far across the board. Oystein Brennan, for example, a 31 flat. His fastest time is a 129.04. So about 2 seconds slower. If you do pit now, of course, your stationary time doesn't change. So if the drivers around you are going 2 seconds a lap slower, then theoretically you are gaining a bit of time in the pits. Now that does mean you have to warm up your new tires in the wet, which is not particularly fun. But of course, sacrifices have to be made in conditions like this. Which sacrifice you make and when you make it is, of course, a decision that only drivers can make, and does come down to experience. And just have to see which ones get it right and which ones get it wrong.
Absolutely. Should definitely be interesting to see where everything comes out. I don't think I realized earlier how close Pashoff was behind Johansson.
He was very close. I say the gap kept flirting with like 1.5, 2, but since then it looks like the battle has cooled off a little bit. He is not right on the back. Lap time of 32.8 last lap, so maybe just getting used to the grip because of 32.245 for Johansson last time. So again, we're seeing drivers getting a little bit faster, a little bit slower. All depends on how comfortable they are in these conditions.
Yeah, and how well they can also, adjust settings on the fly. When rain comes out, you want to adjust your brake bias slightly, your traction control, you're going to be changing around. As Brenham comes into the pits, our race leader, by quite a margin, the last lap was a 31.8. I believe that was the fastest time of all of our drivers. So he was quite rapid, but coming into the pits, going to get new tires on as the rain comes down. But yeah, all of this rain is just a question of how quickly can you adapt to the conditions, how quickly can you adapt to the electronic settings of the cars, all of that good stuff. So definitely a big test of skill when we're in changeable conditions like this.
Certainly is. At the moment, no big incidents up there. That is Charlie Thornton going over the curbs. He's not scared of them yet, but of course, you never quite know when the grip is going to go away in a way that you're not expecting, and that is, of course, the fear that these drivers may have right now, and the hope that we have, as of course, we are evil people. We don't want our racers to have a good time. We just want our viewers to have a good time. Even though basically all of our viewers are racers, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. But I like to pretend that we have lots of diverse people watching our show. Of those 10 wonderful people who are, 9, because one of them's me. Of our 9 wonderful viewers who are here to watch a race, have a good time. Maybe you got it on in the background. Maybe this is your afternoon. But whatever it is, we appreciate you stopping by and seeing what we have to offer.
I would be offended if anyone had this on in the background. This is prime content going on right now. This should be front and center. If anything, they should be like you and get a VR headset to get them as close to the action as possible on this stream. They should have this like inches from their eyes.
I mean, really, what they should be doing is joining the race.
Very true.
Many people here feel like joining. Eventually, that auto mod bot's gonna pop up something to join our Discord. So I leave it to the auto mods. But yeah, it's a great group of people. Even though, again, I'm speaking to everyone who's already in the group. But if you're somehow not, you feel like racing, come on down.
You know, it's funny, as soon as you talked about our 10 viewers, we went down to 8. They don't like being outed as watching our stream.
Yeah,
or maybe they're like, oh, I'm still watching that, and then they close it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned the people like, you shouldn't have this on in the background. You're like, okay, close it.
Turns out people don't like it when you berate them.
Yeah, I might be right. Ooh, Kurt Peters getting his PC fixed, and we might get Kurt back in the race, which would, of course, increase our viewer count by about double.
Yeah.
As the Kurt Peters fan club could come back, so please get that PC fixed, Kurt.
The KPFC. We would not mind having all those Kurt Peters fans back in the crowd, and to see how much faster Kurt Peters got in the off season. He was a very formidable AM driver.
AM champion.
AM champion indeed. We wanted to see our champion defend his title, or even move up to silver, but no dice so far. We need to get that PC repaired. as soon as possible, as Kelvin is coming into the pits as soon as possible, making his stop. He was in just a few seconds ago, and the only other driver in the pits is Marcus Ness, who is either still getting brought back to the pit lane or is having those repairs worked on his car. We'll see if he ends up rejoining the race. As Thornton is off track. That is the chicane. That has been the death chicane for folks today. Nobody has been safe through there.
No, and Charlie, I believe, is already at an off track there. We're seeing him come down into the Kleine chicane as he, I'm going to guess, grabs a bump, grabs another bump. That was a double bump, and you never want a double bump on the Kleine chicane, or you will have a Grosse shunt. So that is P12 still for Charlie, but race to forget maybe for him. A couple races to forget for Charlie at the start of this season. Good to get the bad luck out early, I suppose.
Exactly, and your favorite word of the day, I think, is moments. Charlie had a couple moments there, exiting the Jochen Rindbocht, that tight little hairpin. He got a little squirrely, got in the grass, lost it to the right, and then tried to catch it back to the left. He ultimately kept the car going, so very applaudable by him, but yeah, definitely more moments than he can count right now. Definitely more moments than he would have wanted. But yeah, someone who has not had any moments, Oystein Brenham, even after a pit stop, he is only 16 seconds behind the leader. A very, very strong showing from him today. I hesitate to say it, but I think it's just a matter of time before we see him back up in the lead of this race by quite a significant margin.
Yeah, we're seeing, of course, the difference, and a big part of this is going to be tires, and a big part of this is Brenham. But his last lap of a 31.452, no other drivers are even in the 31s at the moment, and that does include our current leader, Vigard, with a 32.152. Of course, our top three all still yet to pit, which is going to push Oystein into another big lead. He is enjoying these conditions in a way that our other drivers are not. And once again, that is Brenham in net P1. Nobody's surprised. And as you said, it's just sort of a matter of time, quite possibly, until we see another Brenham victory.
Yeah, and Colin Nordell had to fight his way back up from the back, or not the back, kind of like the mid-pack, after a spin on lap 3 or 4. It was pretty early on in the race. He is currently P5, yet to make a pit stop, but only 5 seconds behind Brenham. Not too bad a recovery from him. We'll have to see how everything plays out after the stops and with the final 20 minutes of this race to go. If the rain does increase, we might need to see a transition over to wet tires, so that'll be interesting as well. And Magnus Hakoba is the other driver who has been attempting a very, very big recovery drive. He was involved in a spin at the same place that Carl went off. That just a couple turns later turned into a collision. And that was not Prevost, who was in the black.
That was somebody trying to allow him to get by. Yeah, Kelvin Neimers.
Kelvin, gotcha.
I believe he was just... Oh, wait, no, he was not letting Prevost by. They're racing. They're racing right now. They're fighting. That was an overtake. No.
Isn't Kelvin a lap behind?
Is Kelvin full lap? Oh. Well, yeah, Kelvin got the drive-through.
Yep. Yeah, that was a certified blue flag moment.
Yep. Yeah, because Bryce is not pit yet. So Kelvin had the drive-through and the normal pit stop. So yes, that is a full lap behind at the moment. About 30 seconds behind net after about a 60 to 70 second pit stop, but certainly not a fight at the moment. Though we do have Charlie now catching back up to Castillo. I feel like we've been saying that quite a bit. With Charlie, as he's maybe the ride height's just a bit low for the conditions for Charlie. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that was part of the issues. That was looking mighty bumpy for him.
Yeah, because again, we've been talking about how the rain affects dry tires, what it does when those pressures and those temperatures also decrease. When the pressures go down, the overall ride height of the car decreases as well. So if you are already kind of skirting by with the right height, getting it as low as you can. When it rains and the car gets even lower, that it becomes lower than you initially wanted it, and that causes issues. As Reagan noted, that becomes a very bumpy ride. Those curves become even more difficult as Carl comes to a stop in the pit lane. Marcus Ness still in there getting those repairs done. So, yeah, Charlie might be having some issues with that ride height. That gap that we noted earlier was just about a second, is now almost up to 3. So he has definitely been struggling a little bit on this last lap.
Yes, it does look that way. Rosen Pashov now the current leader of the race. Of course, he and Ivan have not pit yet. Gary Bosman is the current leader of the Silvers, and as well has not pit, which is putting Kelvin Nimers in his sights. Now, Kelvin and Gary had a fantastic fight for the first half of the race. Kelvin then getting a stop-go 30, which put an end to the festivities, and they've been on different pit strategies for a while now. So it looks like, in terms of timing, Gary might have a little bit of an edge, at least on the last lap. He was 3/10 up, but outside of that, relatively consistent in terms of lap times between those two so far. Lots that was going on, but that has been more than not settled out for the race.
And with Pashov coming into the pits, that lets Ivan Watson into the lead of the race, our one of our series admins. He will enjoy leading this race, being able to say he at least led a lap, but with Brenham only now less than 2 seconds behind, and who has already made a pit stop, I don't imagine that lead is going to last for much longer for Mr. Watson there.
Hey, Stephen, this is interesting. Richard Walters was in P2. Am I incorrect in saying that? And Bigard was in P3? Because we now have Richard Walters in P5 and Bigard in P4.
Wow.
So, hot damn, we might have ourselves a fight here. We might actually have real racing going on. Maybe I should be a little less hasty to say that, but oh my god, we might actually have two drivers of similar pace coming up against each other.
What were their pit stop times like? Did Richard have a longer stop?
So Richard was... wow, that is interesting. Richard was stationary for 17.7 seconds. Bigard was stationary for 7.9 seconds. So neither driver taking tires, both drivers taking different amounts of fuel. My guess is that maybe we saw Richard, or I should say maybe Bigard was anticipating a no tires pit stop, and maybe Richard had taken half fuel and was anticipating a tire and fuel pit stop. It's hard to say. I really wish I could say exactly how that happens, but regardless, neither driver took tires, but Bigard saved almost 10 seconds in the pits compared to Richard, taking a lot less fuel. Whether he underfueled for the end of the race, we can only hope not. But regardless, that does put him in front of Richard Walters, and that is a fight that Richard then is going to have to tackle once again.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Richard, if he hadn't had that 10 seconds, he would definitely be in much closer to... No, he would be ahead of Vigard. Because, in total, he's about 3 seconds behind. So, was Gary Bosman in front of Walters before, or was that recent as well?
Gary has not pit yet. He is one of two drivers. Him and Halkovo are the only two drivers who have not pit.
Okay. I didn't see that before, so as soon as... I looked and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Gary, when did you pass Richard?" No, that makes quite a bit of sense.
Yes, so Gary, again, should still be in P1 for the Silvers once he comes out, once he eventually does go into the pits. But for now, he is running pretty clear. We have Magnus and Yvonne here going side by side. It's calling for caution. I didn't see anything. As Yvonne has pit, and again, Magnus does not. Magnus has now gone into the pits. Maybe we'll do a quick 30 seconds here. We've got the time. Let's just see what happened. We've got Yvonne here with Magnus behind, and we got a caution flag that I'm quite curious about. Going into the hairpin, and that is it. That would be the caution, as it looks like Magnus a little eager and gets into the back of Yvonne.
I think one could call that a little aji-baji.
Little argy-bargy, a bit naughty, I would say, from Hagabah, or Hagabah. I don't know who the heck Hagabah is, but Hagabah.
Good old Magnus Harkabar.
Magnus Hagabah, of course. The longtime mainstay of Burzwurst.
Oh man, what else do we have going on? Richard did get ahead of Gary, so that was a successful pass. Now about 3 seconds behind Vigard. So yeah, that'll definitely be an interesting battle to keep an eye on. See if, because yeah, I mean Richard was, I mean before the pit stops. I mean I said it at one point. Richard was 9 seconds behind Brenham. I think that was around lap 26. And Vigard, it was like close to 30 seconds for him. So Walters had an over 20-second lead ahead of Vigard, and that has now turned into a 3-second advantage in Vigard's favor. I mean, that is just, even accounting for the 10 seconds, I have no idea what happened to Walters' race for that kind of swing to occur.
Yeah, that is very curious, and I'm not sure myself. Yeah, currently a 3.4 second gap. And what is also curious is that Vigard seems to be handling this second stint better than Richard. As last lap, Vigard was almost half a second faster than Richard. That I wonder if Vigard was at a bit of a disadvantage in that first stint, having a full tank of fuel, and now we're starting to see the turns, or the table turn, as both drivers are going to be on similar fuel levels at the moment. It's the only thing I can think that is causing these differences. I don't remember any damage. Both drivers seem to be taking care of their tires, so not a lot to be going on that could change that the pace deltas, except for maybe some fuel shenanigans. Maybe the conditions are just bothering one driver more than the other, though it has gone back to a fast track. So rain is done for this race. 10 minutes to go, and we're going to be seeing a dry track for the rest of the way.
Very interesting. I also want to take a look at Jake Smith, who has been reeling in Charlie Thornton, who has caught back up a decent amount to Nicholas Castillo. So we have a brewing battle for P11 amongst our three drivers there. 2 AMs and a silver duking it out at the moment. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on that throughout. Jake lost a little bit of ground to Charlie through some of those corners there, but they are coming up to the Jochen Rindt box as Bryce Prevost is yellow. Do we want to do
I'm doing a quick replay here. Oh,
yep.
There he goes. No harm, no foul. He just carried a bit too much speed.
Yeah, I like you said, I did not see any birds in that shot, so I would agree, no foul.
You know what? I don't know if the claps pick up, but I like that. That was phenomenal.
It did not. I think
okay.
Discord auto.
That got a good chuckle. I mean, I didn't actually chuckle, but in my head I chuckled. So, I liked it. That was good.
That's how you know when it's a good chuckle. If it's like in your head, like you really have to like mentally appreciate that. I would take that over a hearty laugh any day.
Yes.
What I would also take. Oh, go ahead.
No, whoa! As we got some awkward business there. Jake Smith slowing down to allow Charlie to get through the chicane, but slows down a bit too much, and Nicholas Castillo gets caught in a bit of a tricky situation. Now, neither driver, worse for wear. No harm, and certainly no ducks in that view either. As Jake Smith has a drive-through. Jake Smith has a drive-through.
No.
So that is disappointing for him. What could have been a very disappointing for us, honestly, because what could have been a very cool fight for that top AM spot between Jake and Castillo is now for naught as we see Jake into the pits, and the fight is done.
That is a bummer indeed. We will at least still have the fight between Charlie and Castillo. As what happened to Charlie? How did Castillo get in front? I think we need a replay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here, they're side by side. There's some funkiness going on. I want to see this, and then we'll
do like a 30-second replay.
And yeah, we can try a 30-second replay. Here, you know what? Let me try this. I may have fucked up. Alright, it looks like closed. Okay, this is some good fighting. I don't even want to. I don't want to go to replay. I want to see. Oh, okay, Charlie trying to scare Castillo a little bit. I would love to go to replay, but I feel like we would just miss as much action as we would see. Coming down into the Villeneuve chicane, and Charlie's all over the back of Castillo. He cuts just a little bit extra of that chicane. You are allowed to cut some of it. Not all of it, but some of it. We also have Pashov. We're going to jump over here because we have Pashov and Nordell now fighting for that top spot. It looks like Pashov has found some real pace. A 29 flat was his last lap. And Carl with a 30.665. So this might just be a fight that we have to be paying attention to. We've got Carl and Pashov now going down through turn 4 in a really nice run for Pashov. This could be something. I mean, nobody really wants to make a move into the chicane, but I mean, if you're going to do it, now would be the time. Good defending from Carl, but of course that means he has to take an awkward line, which gives Pashov a run through Butte and into the Villeneuve chicane. This is a good pace, and that is Carl saying, no thank you, I do not want to fight through there. That being said, that is now Pashov, who definitely had to cut that chicane in order to make it work. Now, he was already in front, but yeah, definitely a track limit warning for Pashov at the end.
Yeah, I agree. That definitely did look like a track cut. We, of course, aren't able to see those, but Pashov won't want to do that too many more times with less than 6 minutes remaining. He'll want to keep it clean, make sure that he can just build that gap, which is already 1 second back to Carl Nordell. So, yeah, Pashov all of a sudden with a great pace in that Porsche. Carl in the Lamborghini not able to keep up. So all of the pace that we saw in qualifying, unfortunately, did not come to fruition as we wanted it to, or as he wanted it to for Carl. Could still be carrying some damage from that hit earlier. Could still be dealing with damaged ego of losing the lead, anything like that. But yeah, definitely a big bummer for Carl. Would have liked to see him be able to fight his way back up, but yeah, no dice, unfortunately, with that battle against Pashov.
Yeah, unfortunate, but we do have Richard Walters, who is starting to pick up the pace again. Jump over to Kelvin, everything seems fine with him. We have seen Richard Walters, he's lapping a little bit faster than Vigard is at the moment. As well, we have Rosen Pashov and Yvonne Watson now. We have Carl Nordell staying close. Charlie continues to stay on the back of Nicolas Castillo, trying to go down the inside here, and hard on the brakes. He definitely is passed, and we're going into a chicane. This is going to be an awkward moment because that is Oystein Brenham behind. Brenham is being patient. He recognizes that this is an awkward situation, as that is exactly what can happen. And there is Brenham making his way through. Charlie and Nicholas just not able to get side by side through the Kleine chicane. It is Kleine for a reason, not a lot of space. And a little bit of a spin now, Charlie heading off onto his own. Hard to say exactly what happened there. We leave it to the stewards, unless we're sure.
Yeah, it was almost a, not exactly a carbon copy of 2 weeks ago, but we saw an incident, as we mentioned before, where Brenham, because of a connection issue for Charlie, got into his rear end, caused a little bit of damage. No further action. It was a technical issue. What can you do about it? But yeah, we almost saw another incident there between Brenham and Charlie, who are not fighting. But man, Pashoff all of a sudden against Yvonne there.
Flying.
Pashoff still absolutely driving, not flying, driving his way through the field. Very, very good pace there. Yeah, 29-0 that last lap. Are you able to see what Yvonne was able to muster?
Yvonne did a 30.945.
Oh my,
which is
so
why
2 seconds faster.
Yeah, must have made a mistake, which is why Pashov is able to get so close. He's trying to go around the outside of, and let me find the name again, the Boulderberg Haarspelbocht. And now on the inside for the Jackie X chicane, and that, my friends, is 2 positions for Roman Pashov in 2 laps right at the end of this race, from P6 all the way to P4. Phenomenal couple laps there for Rosen Pashov, who is now, as mentioned, in P4. And we do see Yvonne now, yes, 0.3 seconds behind Pashov, but Carl only a second behind him, so Yvonne is definitely in a scary situation here with only a couple minutes left.
And Walters has cut the gap to Vigard almost in half. It's now less than 2 seconds. So Walters definitely with only 2 minutes remaining trying to get a move on. But yeah, I think Pashoff 22.5 seconds behind Richard Walters P3, 22.5 second gap. I think in a minute and 50 seconds, Rosen could probably make that pass.
Rosen can make up 22 seconds in 2 minutes? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
With how he's been driving. Again, not flying, driving.
Yeah, I disagree with you in such a visceral way about that this idea of yours. I think you are a fool, and I think that your father was a hamster, and that your mother smelt of elderberries.
You are right on both accounts.
Well,
I mean, I guess you've met my mother. Does she smell of elderberries?
I have, yeah. I guess she did not smell of elderberries.
Mm.
I mean, maybe I will be honest. I'm not quite sure what elderberries smell like. So maybe she did. Maybe it was a very strong smell that I just didn't pick up on.
Mm. Now, did she smell like what are those berries that they have at IKEA? Like lingonberries? Is that what they are?
Yeah, lingonberries.
Mm.
No, she did not smell like lingonberries.
Okay, and
yeah,
you're.
I will admit, I did not get close enough to your mother to smell her. I feel like that's something that should be stated here.
I thought as somebody who has worked at IKEA, you would be able to have a very tuned nose for the lingonberry scent. Don't even have to be close to somebody to detect it.
I am past my IKEA Prime. My lingonberry scent license has lapsed, unfortunately. I did not pay the renewal fees. We'll go up Brenham just quickly on the final lap. Really, I mean, unless he bins it here, one can only hope. And even if he does bin it, I don't know if he could. 23 seconds, Vigard can make it up. So, Oystein Brenham, to absolutely no one's surprise, is looking like he's going to be winning yet another race. Still undefeated in the 2 seasons at Bez, not including, of course, the races he has missed.
Yeah, I will say it is hard to win a race when you aren't there.
Very difficult. And again, you can see he's getting squirrely there. He's a squirrely man, but I think that's just a testament to how close to the limit he's able to get. One of these days, maybe he'll over-squirrel it, but for now, he seems to be squirreling on the line.
Yep, a perfect squirreling, as one would say.
That's what one would say.
Richard Walters flirting just below a second and a half, but yeah, with it being the last lap, will not make it. We can see quite a bit of distance between Vigard's Porsche and Walters' Lamborghini, the red machine in the back there. Only a couple of corners left, and we have confirmed at the top the winner is number 63, Oystein Brenham. That BMW M4 absolutely flying this race, and I said flying. I meant to say driving.
Yes, you did. You did say flying, didn't you? And I agree wholeheartedly. Oystein Brennan was flying this whole race. What the hell happened back here?
Carl. Very close.
There was a 1.5 second gap. I stopped paying attention, but Yvonne must have screwed up, and here's Carl 0.3 seconds behind with only the Jackie X chicane. Sorry, the Jackie X walked, as that is Carl, who just went by without a fight. He just went by without a fight.
I wonder, was there contact earlier, maybe, and Yvonne was just...
He is out of fuel. He is certainly out of fuel right now.
Oh, no!
Here we've got... Oh, and... Gary Bosman being a kind gentleman and pushing him across the line. Not Gary. Who is pushing him right now?
Yeah, I don't think Gary would give up a place just to push Yvonne.
No, I don't think so. That's Prevo. That is Prevo who's giving him a push. As that is Yvonne, who was able to cross the line in P6 thanks to some generosity from Bryce Prevo, hurting his safety rating but helping out a friend. So Yvonne, P6 from P4, and he's just happy to be crossing the line right now.
That is very funny. I wonder if the stewards are going to have to review that contact.
There was a lot of contact there. I do have, in the span of 7 seconds, I have 3 incidents here.
Oh my God.
Car number 22. That might be a banning. That was such obvious intentional collision. The most obvious intentional collision I have seen in my 2 seasons commentating. So honestly, quite ludicrous if he is allowed to race next week. After shunting Yvonne Watson 3 times in 7 seconds.
I misheard when you said allowed to race. I thought you said alive to race. I was like, man, Bez Racing, they are not kidding around with those penalties.
Yeah, after you're banned from a race, if you get another 3 penalty points, you are banned from life.
Yeah, that's our... when we're not streaming, we're actually hitmen.
It's a day job.
It is. It pays the bills.
It does pay the bills. Vigard is left, so I cannot click on him, but that is a victory for Vigard after some sneaky moves in the pits. Elevates him into P2 ahead of Richard Walters in P3. Rosen Pashov, going to be very happy with his race in P4. Carl Neudel, not so happy, starting on pole, hitting the wall early and having to make a comeback drive to P5. Jumping down to Gary Bosman, who is the victor in the silver class. Very nice, quiet race for Gary Bosman. Having some fun racing with Kelvin, who is left now, so I cannot double-click on him. But, of course, Kelvin, with the drive-through penalty, elevated Gary to a quiet P1/P7 overall. Kelvin P3, and Charlie, after a very rough race for him, still manages 3rd place in the silver class. For the AMs, we've got Bryce Prevo, again, the dirty driver himself, in P9 and P1 overall for the, or P9 overall, P1 for the AMs, with Castillo and Jake Smith rounding out the podiums for the AMs, and a wonderful race mixed with, we've got some exciting moments, some quiet moments, but overall enjoyable race. What did you say, Stephen?
I would fully say. No, that was very good. I wish we maybe had a little bit more rain, or if it had come earlier, anything like that. But it was at least a very interesting qualifying. That was very enjoyable to watch. And yeah, battles right up to the line. That was, a great way to end this race.
And of course, as usual, we've got Brennan as the victor. Maybe one of these days, maybe at round 3, we'll see a change in victors. We can only hope, and we can only hope to see you there. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. So 7 of you at the moment, 6 including myself. And glad to see you stay until the end. Of course, the replay will be available shortly. And for those of you who did stick around, appreciate you stopping by, listening to us babble on for a couple hours, and we hope to see you next race, September 2nd at Suzuka.